Maya thought $37 every 2 weeks was harmless. Then 6 small payments started eating her paycheck. On payday, she opens her bank app, sees the deposit land, and for a second, it feels like relief. Then the other lines are already there. One for $37, another for $22, then $48, then $31, then $18, then $64. 6 tiny pay later charges, each one completely ordinary by itself, now stacked against the same deposit. In this simplified example, that's $220 already spoken for before she decides what to do about groceries, gas, or the rent reminder sitting in her notifications. And that's the question. How did 6 choices that all looked manageable turn payday into money that already feels assigned away? The part that matters is Maya did not do anything that looks reckless in the moment. She did what a lot of people do when life is moving fast and the checking account feels a little tight. The first time, it barely even registers as debt in her mind. She's checking out online for something normal, the kind of purchase you can justify without needing a whole speech about it. The screen gives her 2 options: pay in full now or split it up. The split option says $37 every 2 weeks. That number feels soft. It feels responsible even. Paying in full would make today's balance drop more than she wants. Paying $37 lets her keep more cash in the account right now. She clicks it, gets the item, closes the tab, and moves on with her day feeling like she managed her cash flow pretty well. That's why this works. The app is showing her one purchase and one small payment. It is not showing her future paycheck as a shared piece of property that 6 past checkouts can all claim at once. A couple of weeks later, another normal purchase comes up. This one splits into $22. Not a big deal. Then another one at $48. Still doesn't feel dangerous. If anything, Maya feels like she's being practical. She's not blowing up her checking account in one hit. She's smoothing things out. One screen at a time, one item at a time, one little installment at a time. She keeps today feeling easier. And in the short term, it really does feel easier. Her bank balance that day is higher than it would have been if she had paid in full. That's the visible benefit. The smaller immediate charge protects today's number on the screen. It lowers the pain of checkout. It keeps the account from dipping as much. If you just freeze the story there, it looks smart. But the scoreboard changes the second those purchases stop living on checkout screens and start living on a calendar. Now Maya has one payment due here, another there, another landing a few days after that. The dates look scattered, which is part of the illusion. Scattered does not feel heavy. Scattered feels manageable. A charge on Tuesday, another next Friday, another the week after. Nothing on the calendar says this is one big thing. It all looks like separate little things. Except her paycheck is not separate little things. Her paycheck arrives on a schedule, and rent does too. Groceries, gas, insurance, card minimums. All of that hits a real month. So those scattered charges that felt spread out at checkout start crowding the same paycheck window in real life. That's the hidden mechanism. The purchase did not stay small. It got moved forward into future paychecks and then stacked with other moved forward purchases. By the time Maya adds the next few plans, the numbers look like this in a simplified paycheck. Stack example: $37, $22, $48, $31, $18, and $64. On 6 different checkout screens, that never felt like one decision. On payday, it absolutely is. Together, that stack is $220. And $220 is not some world-ending number here. That's the point. It's believable. It's exactly the kind of amount that can quietly mess with a normal month without looking dramatic enough to trigger alarm bells. Because the problem is not that Maya sees $220 and collapses financially. The problem is that she expected payday to create breathing room, and instead part of that breathing room was already gone. So the deposit lands. The app looks better for a second. Then she remembers what's attached to it. She scrolls. Those payment lines are not giant, but they're real. The checking account is still positive. She is not ruined. But the free cash she thought she had is smaller than the version in her head. And that changes ordinary life fast. Later that same week, Maya is at the grocery store. Nothing cinematic. Just the cart, the total screen, and that mental calculation people do when they know the account is technically okay but tighter than it should be. This is where the story turns from numbers into life. She starts trimming the basket. Not because the purchases were outrageous, because 6 harmless-looking commitments are now competing with food. A couple of items can wait. Maybe the nicer version can wait. Maybe she'll come back next week. Then the gas light comes on earlier than she wants. She doesn't fill the tank all the way. She tells herself she'll do it later, after another payment clears. Again, not a disaster, just one more little sign that the paycheck is no longer fully hers when it arrives. That's the life scoreboard. The real loss is not a scary total on paper. It's less breathing room inside normal bills. And this is where people get confused, because each small payment still looks innocent when you isolate it. If Maya pulls up one plan, it's not terrifying. $18 doesn't feel like the reason life is tight. Neither does $22. Even $37 can sound harmless, but the paycheck does not experience them one by one. The paycheck feels the stack. The app shows one purchase. Your paycheck feels all of them. By the next bill cycle, the pressure gets more obvious. Rent week is coming. Maybe there's a card minimum due too. Maybe insurance is sitting there waiting. The exact number will vary, but the structure is the problem. Those pay later charges are no longer competing with impulse spending. They're competing with the bills that make a month function. Now Maya is not looking at BNPL as a clever checkout tool anymore. She's looking at her calendar and realizing some of her future income has already been promised away by past convenience. That shift matters, because once a paycheck starts arriving pre-committed, even small disruptions get louder. One crowded week can force harder choices. If groceries run high, if the tank gets lower than expected, if another ordinary expense pops up, the month has less room to absorb it. Not because one purchase was huge, because the margin is thinner, and thinner margin creates the second problem. Tracking. When there are several plans active at once, the mental load changes. Maya is no longer remembering one harmless split payment. She's remembering multiple due dates, multiple merchants, multiple reminders, multiple little claims on the same checking account. That is exactly why the setup becomes risky, even for people who are trying to be careful. BNPL is mainstream now. By 2025, Empower projected BNPL would reach around 90 million American users. So this is not some fringe behavior from reckless spenders. It's normal. And that's why the trap is easy to miss. The normality makes it feel safe. The other part is even more revealing. 66% of users have multiple BNPL loans at once. So Maya's situation is not weird. It's the predictable version of how the product gets used in actual life. One plan is easy to explain. Multiple plans are where the calendar starts doing damage. And right after that context, we're back with Maya. Because the research only matters if you can feel it on the screen she's looking at. She's not sitting there thinking about industry growth or consumer behavior. She's looking at her account and realizing payday doesn't feel like payday anymore. It feels like money arriving with labels already attached. That's the scoreboard turn. At first, pay later looked like a way to protect her checking account. Now she can see it was really a way to borrow against future checking account relief. The benefit was immediate, the cost was delayed. And delayed costs are dangerous, because they don't argue with you at checkout. They wait. They wait until several due dates start landing near each other. They wait until grocery week. They wait until the gas tank is low. They wait until rent is close enough to feel heavy. They wait until you open the bank app and realize the deposit is not really fresh money anymore. There's also a fairness point here, because this story gets dumb if we turn it into BNPL is always bad. It isn't. If a purchase is necessary, the terms are clear, and every future payment cleanly fits around rent, groceries, gas, insurance, and any other obligations, it can work as a tool. That's the honest version. The problem is not the existence of split payments. The problem is judging each one alone. That's what Maya was doing, and it made perfect sense in the moment. She was asking, can I handle this payment? What she needed to ask was, What paycheck is this payment landing on, and what else is already waiting there? Those are not the same question. Can I handle $31? Sounds easy. Can the same paycheck handle $31, $37, $22, $48, $18, and $64 while rent week is approaching? That is the real question. And once she sees it that way, the reset becomes much more practical than dramatic. It is not about swearing off every pay later option forever. It is not about guilt. It is not even mainly about debt shame. It is about protecting paycheck control. So Maya does one simple thing before any future click. She opens one calendar tied to her paydays, not a vague mental note, an actual calendar. Then she places every future installment on the paycheck dates it will touch. If the next split plan overlaps with rent, groceries, gas, insurance, or a card minimum, she treats that purchase as not small, no matter how soft the checkout number looks. But the calendar is a stress test, not a green light. Even if the payment fits, Maya still has to ask, is this a real need, or am I making today feel easier by spending future breathing room? That one move changes the story because it forces the product to compete with reality instead of with a single checkout screen. On the app, the offer still looks easy. On the calendar, it has to fight for room. And that's the operating rule worth keeping. A payment is not small if it lands on a paycheck that already has a job. That rule is boring, which is why it works. It doesn't require perfect discipline or a new personality. It just forces future charges to stand in the same line as everything else, already waiting on your income. So if you want the practical action, it's this. Before you click Pay Later, put every installment on one paycheck calendar. If those dates crowd the same week as rent, groceries, gas, insurance, or another minimum payment, cancel the purchase or pay another way. And if the dates technically fit, still ask whether the purchase is buying a real need or just buying today's relief with future freedom. Because Maya did not lose control because one payment was huge. She lost it because 6 harmless-looking payments were all waiting for the same paycheck.